How many times have you said, just one more hour? Then suddenly it's 3 a.m. These are the games that keep you hooked and make it hard to stop playing. Here are 19 addictive games that will steal your time. Death Stranding 2 On the Beach is a perfect game to open this list. It's the direct sequel to the original, developed by the one and only Hideo Kojima, who's often called a genius for how different his games feel. This time, the story expands beyond the United States, taking you to new environments that feel even more unpredictable and dangerous. Gameplay still revolves around delivery and traversal, but it's been expanded in a big way. You're not just walking from point A to point B anymore. You're dealing with dynamic terrain, new tools, vehicles, and larger systems that make planning your route more important than ever. There's also more flexibility now. You can approach situations with stealth, avoid danger completely, or go into combat when needed. That added freedom makes the experience feel less repetitive and gives you more control over how you play.
I write to escape. Every word is a step forward. Into darkness.
I'm glad you're on this case with me, Anderson. It's right up your alley.
The victim was one of their own. FBI Special Agent Robert Nightingale.
So you knew our victim?
Only the rumors. He was chasing a writer.
Someone knew they were here. Was playing a game with them.
Killer left the...
Alan Wake 2 is one of those games that immediately feels like you're getting something high quality the moment you start. The story follows two characters, Alan Wake, trapped in a nightmare, and FBI agent Saga Anderson investigating a series of ritual murders, with both stories slowly connecting. Gameplay leans fully into survival horror, and it's a big step up from the first game. Ammo is limited, enemies are more aggressive, and you can't just rely on shooting. You have to use light to weaken enemies first before dealing damage, which adds tension to every encounter. There's also a lot more depth in how the game is structured. You switch between Saga and Alan, and both feel very different to play. Saga's side focuses more on investigation, collecting clues, and piecing things together, while Alan's sections feel more surreal, with shifting environments and unpredictable moments that keep you on edge. Silent Hill F takes a completely different direction from the previous games. Instead of returning to the usual town of Silent Hill, this time the story is set in 1960s Japan, inside a small rural village called Ebisugaoka, which already gives it a very different tone and atmosphere. The story follows a high school girl named Hinako, living a normal life until her town is suddenly covered in fog and begins to change into something disturbing. Gameplay leans into psychological horror with exploration and survival elements. There are no guns or ranged weapons. You deal with enemies almost entirely through melee combat, using a variety of weapons with different movesets. Attacking, dodging, and parrying all cost stamina, and many weapons can break if you use them too much, which forces you to manage your resources carefully.
Elden
Ring. Emboldened by the flame of ambition, someone must extinguish thy flame.
They will fight, and they will die in an unending curse.
Elden Ring is one of the biggest games of the last decade, and it's still worth picking up even years later. It drops you into the lands between with very little explanation and just lets you figure things out as you go. Gameplay is where it really shines. It mixes open-world exploration with combat that gives you a lot of freedom. You can build your character however you want, melee, magic, stealth, or a mix of everything. Fights are punishing because enemies hit hard, and learning their patterns is part of the process. Boss fights especially stand out since they really test your timing and positioning. Exploration is a big part of why the game's so good. The world isn't just large, it's packed with things to find. Hidden dungeons, side bosses, and random encounters are everywhere, so going off track usually leads to something worth it. Resident Evil 4 Remake is easily one of the best modern horror remakes, and it's still good whether you've played the original or not. You play as Leon S. Kennedy on a mission to rescue the president's daughter from a mysterious cult in rural Europe. But this remake makes every moment more cinematic and intense without losing the horror that made the original a classic. Gameplay is a huge part of why this version feels worth your money. The remake keeps the over-the-shoulder perspective that made the original so influential, but refines it with modern controls, smoother aiming, and much more responsive combat. Ammo and healing items are still limited, which forces you to think before engaging enemies and manage your supplies carefully. Leon can dodge, counter, and use various weapons that each have distinct feels and uses, giving you options in how you approach every fight.
You're here looking for someone? Maybe some missing señorita?
Ashley, where are you?
Your soul requires cleansing.
Ashley Graham, are you in here?
Just let me go.
Listen. I'm hearing the president's orders and
Uncharted 4 is the kind of game that feels like you're playing a full movie, but you're actually in control the whole time. It follows Nathan Drake coming out of retirement for one last adventure, and the story feels more personal while still delivering those big cinematic moments. Gameplay mixes shooting, climbing, stealth, and puzzles in a really smooth way. Movement feels more fluid now, especially with the rope mechanic that lets you swing, reposition, and even use it during combat. Levels are also more open compared to older entries, giving you different paths and ways to approach enemies. There's also a solid amount of content here. The game is longer than previous entries, and if you take your time exploring and finding collectibles, it adds even more to the experience.
Another treasure in the palm of my hand. How many chances at a normal life have I thrown away? And in the end, one question remains. No! Was it all worth it?
Little Hope focuses heavily on choice-driven storytelling, where every decision can change how the story unfolds. It follows a group of college students and their professor, who end up trapped in a foggy, abandoned town, while strange visions connected to past witch trials start appearing around them. Gameplay is centered around dialogue choices and quick-time events. You control multiple characters, and your decisions directly affect relationships and who survives. One mistake during a critical moment can completely change the outcome. There's solid replay value here. The game isn't very long, but it offers multiple endings and different story paths depending on your choices. You can also play in co-op, where each player controls different characters, making the experience feel more dynamic.
With evil, or was there a dark presence manipulating those who accused them?
Together, by God's grace, little hope will prevail.
Or perhaps it was something else entirely.
I dare say we'll find out.
And find out you must if you want to stay alive and keep those around you safe.
What is that?
One thing you will certainly discover is that all that suffering, all that malice, leaves a profound effect. It creates repercussions.
I might be asking too much of you. But I don't have a choice. Only you can do this. Please, help me.
Lies of P takes a familiar story and turns it into something much darker. It's inspired by Pinocchio, but set in a grim city filled with broken puppets and a world that's already falling apart. You play as P, trying to uncover what happened while dealing with the consequences of a disaster that changed everything. Gameplay is built around precise combat and timing. You rely on dodging, blocking, and perfect guards to survive, and mistakes get punished quickly. Weapons can be customized by mixing blades and handles, which gives you more control over your playstyle. There's also a system tied to lying. Certain choices affect how the story unfolds and can lead to different outcomes, adding replay value beyond just combat. The game also gives you a lot to work toward. Upgrades, weapon builds, and tough boss fights keep things engaging, especially if you enjoy mastering mechanics over time.
See the people I have to work with here. Complete and utter degradation. We are the government you people deserve.
I'll drown you in your own blood!
So you do understand. There is no other way. Man is a beast. A beast!
Who are those people trying to kill us?
It is strong!
Metro Exodus gives you a full survival horror experience that feels grounded and immersive from start to finish. The story follows Artyom and his crew leaving the Moscow tunnels, traveling across a post-apocalyptic Russia on a train while searching for a better place to survive. Gameplay mixes stealth, shooting, and survival mechanics in a way that keeps you thinking all the time. Resources are limited, weapons can be customized, and you constantly scavenge for materials to craft ammo, filters, and supplies. You can approach situations quietly or go into combat, but every decision has consequences. The game also expands the series with semi-open world areas instead of just linear levels. Each region has its own environment, enemies, and conditions, and you're free to explore, find upgrades, or take on optional paths before moving forward. Black Myth Wukong is the kind of game that actually feels worth your money the moment you start playing. The game pulls you into a world inspired by Journey to the West. But what really hits first is how good everything looks. From the environments to the boss designs, it feels like a big-budget experience all the way through. Gameplay is where most of the value comes in. Combat is fast, responsive, and built around timing, dodging, and building up energy to unleash stronger attacks. You mainly use a staff with different stances and abilities, which keeps fights simple to understand but still satisfying to master. On top of that, the game is packed with boss fights, and that's honestly the main focus. You're constantly facing new enemies with different patterns, so it rarely feels repetitive moment to moment. If you're into action RPGs with strong combat and memorable boss fights, this is the kind of game that feels like you're getting your money's worth.
out into the wilderness for mass burial. These grave sites are now feeding grounds for freakers, making for some deadly rides and intense horde fights. Weather, harsh and unpredictable. In the northern Cascade region, heavy rain will muddy up those windy trails. Snow in the mountains and foothills will make the freakers even stronger and more dangerous. With 6 regions filled with abandoned Nero checkpoints, survivor camps, choked off tunnels, explore the world of Days Gone at your peril.
Days Gone gives you a lot of content and systems that keep the experience going for hours. The story follows Deacon St. John, a drifter trying to survive in a world filled with freakers, while dealing with his past and holding on to hope. Gameplay mixes open-world exploration, survival, and combat. Your bike plays a huge role. You manage fuel, repair it, and upgrade it over time. Resources are limited, so crafting items, choosing when to fight, and planning your route all matter. One of the biggest highlights is the horde system. You're dealing with massive groups of enemies moving together, and taking them on requires strategy. You can set traps, use the environment, or come back later when you're better prepared. There's also plenty to do. Side missions, camp upgrades, skill progression, and different combat approaches give you a lot of flexibility and replay value. Digimon Story Time Stranger gives you a full JRPG experience that actually feels worth your time, especially if you enjoy monster collecting games. The story follows an agent investigating strange events in Tokyo, which leads to time travel, parallel worlds, and a bigger mystery connecting the human world with the digital world. Gameplay is built around collecting, raising, and evolving Digimon. Battles are turn-based, but there's a lot going on behind it. Team setup, element advantages, and evolution paths all matter. You can bring multiple Digimon into fights, and switching strategies becomes important as enemies get tougher. There's also a lot of depth in how you build your team. Digimon don't just evolve one way. You can evolve, de-evolve, and customize them based on how you want to play. If you're into JRPGs with team building, progression, and a lot of customization, this one gives you a solid amount of content and depth for what you're getting. Dead Space Remake feels like a full upgrade, not just a visual remake. You're back on the USG Ishimura as Isaac Clarke, but everything, from the atmosphere to the gameplay, feels more modern and more intense. Gameplay still focuses on strategic combat and resource management, but it's been improved in a lot of ways. Weapons feel better to use, upgrades are more meaningful, and enemies react more realistically. The remake also adds a system where enemies' bodies can be torn apart in layers, making fights feel more brutal and tactical. Exploration is also much better now. The entire ship is connected without loading screens, so you can move freely and backtrack to find upgrades or hidden areas. On top of that, everything has been rebuilt from the ground up. Visuals, sound, animations. Not just upgraded. That's why the atmosphere feels heavier, darker, and more immersive compared to the original.
Coming? Where is everybody?
Up there! No!
This transformation, it's remarkable. Don't you want to be reunited with the people you lost?
Ghost of Yotei feels like a full package that actually gives you a lot for your money, especially if you enjoy open-world action games with strong presentation. The story follows Atsu, a lone mercenary on a revenge journey across northern Japan, hunting down a group responsible for her family's death. Gameplay builds on what worked before, but adds more depth. You get a mix of melee combat, stealth, and ranged options, and you can shape your own playstyle depending on how you approach fights. There are also side activities, duels, and optional content spread across the world, so you're not just rushing through the main story. The world itself is a big part of the experience. You're exploring a large open area based on northern Japan, with different environments like forests, snowy mountains, and villages. Traveling on horseback, discovering side content, and just moving around the world adds a lot to the overall playtime.
Carves their own path. Wandering a road of steel and ash. Finding renewal beyond revenge. The things we endure make us what we are. But a ghost chooses who they will become. And you will know my name.
But I'm not the only one out here. They thought they could control me. Now, I will tear them apart. One by one.
Dying Light: The Beast gives you a lot to work with, especially if you like survival horror with fast movement and combat. The story brings back Kyle Crane, but this time he's changed after years of experiments, and that plays a big role in how everything unfolds. Gameplay still revolves around parkour and close combat, but it feels more aggressive now. Moving across rooftops, climbing, and escaping danger is just as important as fighting. During the day, you can explore and gather supplies, but at night, everything gets more dangerous, so you have to be way more careful. There's also a new beast mode that lets you go all out in fights. It adds a different layer to combat, so you're not just relying on weapons all the time. You're also getting a decent amount of content here. There's an open area to explore, missions to complete, skills to unlock, and co-op if you want to play with others.
Of course, from now on, we need to isolate him.
You want to lock him away?
Do you know what your brother is capable of?
Hugo is condemned.
The last threshold means the death of the carrier.
It's starting all over again.
Not starting. Spreading. Hugo.
Hugo? My brother needs your help, and the rats are already there!
Control your flame, Protector. Others are burned in it.
The island! It's where I must go! It's where I will be fixed, Amicia!
I will do what's good for you. I will. I'm not ready for this.
No one could be ready for this.
A Plague Tale: Requiem gives you a full, story-driven experience that really feels worth your time, especially if you care about emotional storytelling. The game continues Amicia and Hugo's journey as they search for a cure, while everything around them keeps getting worse. It's not just about survival, it's about how far they're willing to go for each other. Gameplay focuses on stealth, resource management, and using the environment. You're dealing with soldiers and massive swarms of rats, and both require different approaches. You can use tools like a sling, crossbow, and alchemy to distract, attack, or control situations. But resources are limited, so every move matters. There's more flexibility compared to the first game. Levels are larger, you can switch between stealth and more aggressive playstyles, and Hugo's abilities let you track enemies or even control rats in certain situations. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is easily one of the best RPGs ever made, and it still feels worth every dollar even years later. The story follows Geralt searching for Ciri, but what really stands out is how even side quests feel just as important as the main story. Gameplay gives you a lot of freedom. You use swords, magic signs, potions, and preparation before fights, especially when dealing with stronger monsters. It's not just about attacking. Understanding enemies and planning ahead makes a big difference. There's a huge amount of content here. Side quests have real stories, choices actually matter, and different decisions can lead to completely different outcomes. Add in exploration, crafting, and upgrades, and you're getting dozens of hours without it feeling empty. Everything comes together in a way that feels complete. The world, the characters, and the systems all support each other, making it easy to stay invested for a long time.
You will find her and bring her to me.
Gotta save Ciri, whatever the cost.
The Wild Hunt tracked them down, found them there.
Elder blood flows in Ciri's veins, which is why the Wild Hunt wants to capture her.
This is the end, Geralt.
It's just the beginning.
But there's one they fear. In their tongue, he is Dovahkiin, Dragonborn.
The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is one of those games that has stood the test of time, and still feels worth every dollar, even years after release. You start out as the Dragonborn, a character prophesied to fight dragons and shape the fate of Skyrim. But what makes the game worth playing is how much freedom you're given from the very beginning. Gameplay lets you go almost anywhere and become almost anything. You can be a sneaky archer, a spellcasting mage, a sword-swinging warrior, or mix and match however you want. Skills improve as you use them, so your playstyle evolves naturally over time. The world is packed with stuff to do. Beyond the main quest line, there are factions to join like the Thieves Guild or the College of Winterhold, random encounters in the wilderness, hidden caves and ruins, and NPCs with their own stories to tell. That means you can spend hundreds of hours exploring and still find something new.
Fabric of the universe itself.
How would you feel about helping me kill some evil bastards?
It blesses me this day. Together, we might survive.
I'll enjoy watching you try. In mere moments, all that you have dreaded will come to pass. When the screaming stops and your mind is gone, the rest, perhaps, is silence.
Baldur's Gate 3 has quickly become one of the most talked about RPGs in years, and it's easy to see why, especially if you love deep storytelling and real choice in your game. Combat is built on turn-based D&D rules, so every fight feels tactical. Positioning matters, environments can be used to your advantage, and you're constantly choosing between brute force, clever use of spells, or creative combos. There's a real strategy layer here that rewards planning and experimentation. The world itself is rich with detail. Every NPC feels like a real character with their own motives, and quests aren't just go here, kill this. They often twist in unexpected ways depending on how you approach them. If you're into RPGs that mix strong storytelling, complex combat, and real player agency, Baldur's Gate 3 delivers a huge amount of value, and it's easy to see why so many players consider it worth your time and money.